In this video, I'm going to show you why I think Grab Holdings is one of the best stocks to buy for the next 2 to 3 months. It's one of the largest positions in our Robinhood Challenge, as well as our main portfolio. I'm going to cover most of the technical analysis, looking at the charts here, and give you a trade setup and a plan for the months ahead, but also dive a little bit into some of the fundamentals and what's been happening recently on the news. So just first starting with our current position, we have about $1,300 in options and $824 in shares. There's been some headlines and Seeking Alpha. This was last week on February 13th. They could not be more bullish on Grab. It's just been growing quite a bit. It's like the Uber of Southeast Asia, mobility delivery, financial services segments. It's kind of like a super app, and they've issued a strong buy rating on Grab. You can see that on average on Twitter, there is about 300 to 500 posts per day. And just over the weekend, that rose up to 4,500 in one day, 9,000 posts on a week. So there's a lot of attention right now on Grab. It's caught like wildfire. It was about up 11.5% today in Europe. So I'm sure tomorrow it's going to open up as well. There were some really large bullish call options on Grab. These are mostly leaps that you can see here, about $9 million in premium. And this just shows it a bit further here as well. On the 11th of February, just really all of last week, people were buying heavy. You can see the premium here of all these different 5, 6, 5.5 strike call contracts that people were buying, mostly for leaps, but there's also some bullish flow for March and February. And of course, they have earnings on Wednesday of this week. You can see here, this is a really cool website to go to. If you go to the optionscharts.io, you can see the open interest and you can select the expiration dates. You see here, if I select January 2026 and 2027, you hit apply and you can see that there's a lot of call open interest at 10, 7.5, and even 5. And what that does is it really causes a squeeze on price if price begins to rise, because options dealers who sold these call contracts to the buyers are forced to remain delta neutral, and they purchase shares of the underlying stock. So what that means is if price moves up, then the options dealers start to buy more and more shares until they're in the money. Then at that case, if the delta's 1, then they would own 100 shares of the underlying. So that can cause a push on price. And then looking at Grab as a company, just quarter over quarter, you can see that the total monthly transacting users has continued to grow. The gross merchandise value, as well as the gross merchandise value per monthly transacting user, has declined last year, and this is mainly due to FX rates. It was talked a bit about here in this article about currency exchange headwinds, and since the dollar is so strong, that their reported growth is actually lower than what they're actually growing at. So if the dollar ever does start to fall, then Grab is going to recognize more and more revenue. So that's one key factor, is to watch the dollar as well for this company, because obviously they transact in Asia, but you can see that they're growing a bit faster than what's actually being reported in US dollars. You can see the revenue is going up. Their net income is starting to turn positive. Same thing with their cash flow, and their cash position is growing. So this is a healthy business. Its net debt is about 27% of the stock price. So that means every time that you purchase a share of Grab, about, I think, $1.35 at the current price is cash. So you're really only paying the difference, about $3.65 for the operating business of Grab. So it's a really cheap stock at this moment from just my understanding and analysis of the business. But let's just take a look at the technicals, because a lot of stocks have been doing this recently, like Palantir, Hood, Lemonade. There's just SoFi. A bunch of these stocks have formed this large bottoming pattern since like 2021, the end of 2021 to the end of 2024, and now they're starting to break out. And so once Grab broke over $4, you can see it pushed up to this 567 level, and then it actually formed this downtrend, and then since recently it broke out above this trend line. I was actually playing it on some weeklies before, looking at this sneaky trend line here, and you can see that it broke above, came back down, retested this like 440 level, and then it had this really strong spike to the upside. It hit $5.20, and then it came back down and corrected. The person who was in March $5 contracts actually sold out, and then I took profit there as well. It rejected heavily back down into pattern, but then broke back out above. So it kind of got over its skis a little bit, pulled back, and then now it's been trending higher. And if you look at it on the weekly chart, this is why I'm really bullish here on Grab, is look at the volume. So you can see that the volume has been increasing week over week as it's been breaking out to the upside. And so that's a really strong pattern really just a confirmation that there's a lot of momentum here on this breakout and that this is going to continue higher. And then, of course, it got picked up on Twitter. So it's going to be pretty hard to get in at a cheap price tomorrow if you are looking to play options. Shares, I think, are fine if you are looking to be a longer-term investor here, because I do think that this stock eventually is going to hit $10. And let me explain to you why that's going to happen. So you could see that back when Grab initially, this is actually, they IPO'd through a SPAC, and it actually hovered above this $10, came back down, retested that level, and it bounced. And after some time, it eventually broke down that $10 level, and you can see how quickly it traveled all the way down to $4, right? So it had this really quick correction. And if you use volume profile, you can see that really all of the volume is down here in this bottoming pattern, right? So there's not a lot of volume between this area, and then if you look up here, if you can even see it, there's not a lot of volume at all over $7.60. There's some here above 567, like the recent high that it had, and that was just from when market participants were either trying to buy the dip and then were getting dumped on, and then eventually it finally bottomed out. And so because there's not a lot of volume, not a lot of business has been done there. And so price likes to move very quickly in that range. And what that means is that we could actually have a really strong push. You know, a lot of people online are saying $10 in 2027, but it's certainly possible that we could see $10 this year. We could see it even by like July or September, just depending on how many people start buying into this stock, as well as how earnings go on Wednesday. But you can see that there's actually no volume here between $9.50 and $10. And so at some point, I do expect us to move all the way back up to that $10 range and test it. But obviously, we do have to get through these other levels as well at 567, 680, and 763. So you could just think of that as like around $6, $7, $7.50. And, you know, once price really starts breaking out, it's going to be hard to time. But really what I would like to see for me to hold a bit longer is we came back down and retested this on Friday. I expect a bounce. We're probably going to come back up and test this like 567 level. At some point, I do think that it's going to break over. You know, if this has like any sort of rejection back down a bit, this is probably where, if I'm still bullish, just depending on how earnings go, I may buy back into this or load more, scale more into longer term or shares. Really, I want it to break over this 567 level and then have it move up to this 680. You know, it might break over, come back down, retest this 567 level as support. If that holds, then that's a bullish confirmation that we're going to push towards that $7 range. So that's what I'd be looking in the near term. I have a bunch of $5 calls for the February 21st, and then I have March 21st, and then I have some Julys, and then a bunch of leaps as well. So really bullish here on Grab. And I do think that we're going to head a bit higher. We're also holding above the 50-day moving average. This is not going to go just like straight vertical, obviously. It will take some time to play out. So just make sure you sell into strength, take profit where you can. And that's really it for Grab. I mean, this is going to be a hot stock over the next coming weeks. And let me know if you like this content. I'll probably drop some other videos on like just specific ones. NIO is another one that I want to cover because it's a stock that I'm really bullish on. So I'll cover that in the next one. But make sure you guys like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.